on the lee of sand dunes, in jungles, borders of rivers, and, of course, where there are mudslides near the coast.
And it's a big childhood fear, because I'm guessing that if we go back 100 or 200 years to the era of explorers, they were very conscious that they could step on something and just never be seen again.
Yes, and it somehow got into our sort of memory, into our childhood understanding of adventuring and exploring, that Victorian explorers, quicksand and the danger thereof was part of what they faced. It's not quite as dramatic as that, and we have a false impression of what will happen because of films and Hollywood and books and that. But it is a danger, although most people who get stuck in quicksand, unfortunately that lady we heard of in Black Ven disappeared without trace. Most people who die in quicksand, and it's very rare, do so because of dehydration or because of exposure, not because they've been suffocated in the quicksand itself.
David Whitehouse, science journalist, thank you very much indeed. Never talked about quicksand before on the show, but do tell us if you've had a quicksand experience, or maybe in a bog you were and it started to go and you were going down and oh my goodness.
What you got to give it to somebody.
We are discussing quicksand on Radio 2, the stuff of childhood nightmares, and it was Lawrence of Arabia, wasn't it, that film, but there have been others as well. And Roger Allworth in Dorchester, you got stuck in 1973, and it was Charmouth again.
Yes, it was, yeah. We used to go there regularly at weekends and look for fossils.
And tell me what happened.
Well, if you climb up onto the cliffs, there's flat plateau areas, and it tends to be like quicksand areas there. And as you're walking across, if you're not careful, you can sink up to your knees.
So?
Well, I got stuck there with a friend, and we had wellies on at the time, and luckily he got hold of me and dragged me out.
Because the wellies help, don't they? Because you effectively you get a welly warning, because your wellies get stuck, and then you can then come out of them.
Yeah, I was very lucky I had them on, really, because he pulled me and I slipped down and we left the boots behind.
You don't get the boots back, no.
No.
And would you then crawled out or did the breaststroke or what?
Yeah, they're small areas. They tend to be about sort of 10 to 12 foot across, so you can really sort of crawl across the quicksand. But I think most people down there who live locally probably know about them. But it is quite dangerous. You've got to be very careful.
I bet you had nightmares about that afterwards.
I did. Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't by myself.
Thanks, Roger. All the best.
Okay, thanks.
Cheers. It's interesting, isn't it? Charmouth in Dorset keeps coming up. It's in the story that we've just been discussing. We were sent one by a listener as well about Anglesey and 70-year-old Will Pritchard. This was on the, 2000, February actually, just quite recently, saying that Will Pritchard was walking with his 4-year-old grandson Kieran, sank to his waist in sand at the top of Ligwy Breach, Anglesey. He managed to push his grandson away from danger, imagine that, but his spaniel also became trapped, and as he sank further he feared he would not escape the oozing clay-like sand. He says, I went straight down. It was not a slow thing. I dropped straight to my waist. And luckily he was rescued. Also, we have Mandy Burchek in Newport saying, I fell into quicksand when I was 9. She just called us. It was the scariest thing ever. If I wasn't with my 2 older sisters, I wouldn't be here now. You feel like you're being strangled at the waist. Christina in Ilfracombe, you were in Charmouth as well.
Yes, about 25 years ago, I was walking along the beach from Charmouth to Lyme Regis, and stupidly I didn't know anything about tide timetables. The sea came in on the Charmouth side, the sea came on the Lyme Regis side, so I crawled up onto the mud flaps, and the next thing you know, it was really quick for me. I was up to my waist, terrified, because I was just sinking more and more. It was misty as well. Nobody could have seen me. Nobody knew I was there. And out of the mist, this man turned up, put a plank down, and pulled me out, went back along the plank, pulled my welly boots out, and then he was gone. And by the time I'd recovered the shock, I didn't get a chance to say thank you. So if there's a man out there and he's still alive, and he rescued me on the beach about 25 years ago, thank you so much. Because it really did feel like he saved my life.
What you described is seriously scary biscuits, isn't it? Because you've got it's not so much quicksand, it's a boggy thing, isn't it? It's the mud, and you've got the mist, and no one can see you, and you're young, and suddenly you can't move.
Yeah, well, every time I did move, I was just going further down. I mean, that guy who was the expert saying it's not very deep, it certainly seemed to be pretty deep to me.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, Christina, and I'm glad you're... How long ago was this, by the way?
It was about 25 years ago.
Wouldn't it be amazing if the person with the plank suddenly emerged?
I just would love to say thank you to him, because I really thought that was it.
I love the sort of business-like way. He puts the plank down, he gets you out,
He did, he
gets
just
your
pulled me
boots.
out, he went back along the plank, pulled my wellies out, and next thing I know, he was gone again.
Tremendous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, bye.
Mick in Pedford says, it's impossible to sink in quicksand if you float on your back. It's all to do with surface area. That seems to be the advice. If you start going down, lean backwards and just hope somebody notices. Going to talk later on about the husband and wife who both had cancer. The wife was nursed through breast cancer by the husband, who then, very unusually for a man, developed breast cancer himself. It's a great story, and they'll be joining us in the next Tunnel of Love. Great! Sally is here. She'll be here soon with the traffic. She's here really, but she will be speaking soon. That's the correct pedantic description of the situation, isn't it?
I am physically here.
Physically here, but not
vocally
speaking.
not yet.
But not yet. Well, you've just ruined that. Mr. Pennerwin Hughes in Leicester says this. This is an amazing story, Sally, about quicksand. By the way, we've had Steve Wright in just a minute ago praising an item. It doesn't really happen, but he says this is fascinating.
Your quicksand item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Hughes says, my great-grandfather was walking across the sands in North Wales at night and was stuck in quicksand. The tide came in and he drowned. When they found him, his fob watch, the watch that hangs on the chain, was still ticking. We've kept it in the family.
Extraordinary story.
Irene Flack emails, about 10 years ago I did a walk across Morecambe Bay. Oh no, this is one where it can happen. You've got to be led by the Queen's Guide in Morecambe Bay. They mark out the safe route. Step outside it, the quicksand is very dangerous. It was an amazing walk, but I was terrified of the sand because to the untrained eye it looked exactly the same as the safe areas. Those Chinese cockle pickers, I think, was partly the tide, but also partly getting stuck. Yeah. Paul in York says, I've lived in Clacton upon Sea all my life, and I used to be a lifeguard on the beach, and I was walking along the beach with my 10-year-old daughter one day, and we got trapped in quicksand up to our waists. We crawled out on our bellies. So there we go again. If it happens to you, Sal, go flat, okay? Either on your back or front.
How can you go flat if you're stuck in a hole?
I think leaning forwards probably, or I don't know. Jane emails, while walking on the beach in Dingle Bay in southwest Ireland when I was 13 with my family, I became stuck in a patch of sinking sand. Luckily, my parents managed to pull me out of my wellies. And this is the other thing. Wear wellies. I know you're wearing them now. Don't take them off. Unfortunately, the wellies had to stay where they were. You could feel the weight of the sand pushing against your legs. It was like being stuck in concrete. And one last thought, amazing from all the comments, people saying that it's like being crushed by a boa constrictor. When you go in, the weight of it holds you very, very tight. So we must be careful.
Well, yes. I mean, you're so tall, it would take a while.
I'm going to try lying back. I mean, I think if that happens.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Can you beat that?
Not really.
BBC Radio 2.
Let's give it a go.
I'm going to start there in the Borders region of Scotland for the road stuff. The A7 at Fountain Hall, north of Gallash.
Crystals and Do Ron Ron. A barrister from Newcastle who supported his wife as she battled breast cancer has become one of the 300 men each year who develop the same disease. Paul Cross helped his wife Anne fight her illness a decade ago, but the couple were going through it all over again last year when, against odds of more than 20,000 to 1, Paul was also diagnosed with breast cancer. So have you and your partner both battled cancer? Call 0500 288 291, or maybe you're a man who's suffered with breast cancer, because it is a small number of people who do get it. vine@bbc.co.uk is the email. So joining us from our Newcastle studio to tell their story are Paul and Anne.